It's been said that the first 3 Fast and Furious movies were sort of a love letter to the JDM car culture. I tend to agree. Then explain to me how they cast this Rx8. It's just a weird car. I mean, the Rx8 made only 238 measly horsepower and 159 pound-feet of torque. At that time, that was barely more than a Honda RSX or a Civic. I seriously think an S15 Silvia would have been much better choice. What do you think? And if you've ever driven an Rx8, you've probably been disappointed with the power, but maybe a little satisfied with the handling, because it wasn't a terrible handling car, but they're going to use it for drifting, right? So as for the style, some people liked that car, some people didn't. Put me in the second group. To me, that car always looked like a feminine hygiene product, if you catch my drift. No pun intended. Unfortunately, the engine on the Hero 1 was not modified for its appearance in Tokyo Drift, because that's the clean car. They're not going to be doing stunts in that car. So, however, this car got cast for Tokyo Drift. That story is coming up right after the break. Did you know that the average driver gets 9 traffic tickets in their lifetime? Look, I'll be the first to admit that I've taken maybe a couple of liberties with traffic laws back in the day. And of course, when I got caught, I had to go to court to fight the ticket, which was always a hassle. And each time that I lost my case, it meant big fines, points on my record, and higher insurance premiums. Eventually, I realized that nothing beats having a good attorney argue your case in court. So here's what you do. You download the Off the Record app to your phone and register for an account. And if you get a ticket, simply upload a photo of your ticket into the app and you will be quickly matched with a lawyer in your jurisdiction. Your lawyer will start working your case right away, and in most cases, you'll never have to set foot in a courtroom. Off the Record has a 97% success rate and a 4.9 star rating on Google. And guess what? They even offer a money-back guarantee if they aren't able to reduce the points or keep that ticket fully off your record. Best of all, I've arranged a 10% discount for all of my YouTube viewers, so download the app and register using the referral code FASTLIFE to receive 10% off your first case. The story I heard was that as Tokyo Drift was looking for modified right-hand drive cars, and as it was in Too Fast and Furious, the Hero 1 movie cars did not need to have modified engines because they're not doing stunts. All the sequences were doing like 40 miles an hour. Because of the relation Universal developed with Veilside, primarily achieved by RJ Devera when Tokyo Drift went with a new producer, a new director, a new picture car team. Everything changed about the production, everything. But thankfully, the relation with Veilside was still intact, which is good because a lot of those cars had Veilside parts. Since Veilside provided kits for several cars in the Tokyo Drift, including the Drift Cranes 350Z, along with Han's Rx8, they had a big presence in this movie. And that's one of the things I liked about it. I really liked the Veilside stuff. Subsequently, through development of business with Veilside, a company called New Era Imports became involved in the supply of the Japanese cars for the third movie, Tokyo Drift. Liaising directly between Universal Studios, Hollywood, and Japan's premier tuners to create special cars to be featured in the film. They didn't want to buy them and fix them up and then be stuck with them because they'd have to be exported anyway. The finished car that they did here was dubbed the Veilside D1 GT Rx8. Sounds fancy, but not so much. The body kit was actually designed by Veilside for D1 professional competition, hence the name, right? The kit included a front bumper with a large duct designed for turbo intercooler, side skirts. The rear bumper featured an integrated diffuser and a discrete mesh screen for displaying the upgraded exhaust system. Clean, not overboard, but played the part. There were 3 Rx8s we used in the movie: a Hero, a process car, and a stunt car. After the movie though, the Hero car returned back to New Era Imports. They decided to restore the car after a couple of years. They were conditioning it for resale. In quest for perfection, New Era commissioned an entire specialized respray with many layers, followed up by deep coats of clear lacquer, before laying complete new high-quality decals of original one-off Veilside design. I didn't really like the 3-stage, the 3 fades or whatever they go. Every detail was restored right down to the Veilside plaques and the sunstrip. The Veilside front bumpers is filled entirely by a massive gritty intercooler which feeds cooled air from the Trust T61BZ turbo, making 5.6 pounds of boost, which is not much, but you can't go crazy with that motor, you know that. The original wide arches, deep skirts, and stunning 19 two-piece wheels look pretty good. Veilside's carbon rear GT wing give more hints of the performance, available with the lower diffuser housing a large bore twin exit Tanabe full stainless exhaust system. So it had some good parts. So let's take a look at the damage. The total value of the Veilside genuine body kit was about 4,000 pounds back then, or $5,000 in America back then. The paint job and sticker cost over $5,000. Wheels and tires cost another 2,500 bucks. A little more with the tires, of course, maybe 3,500. So this refreshing turned into a $10,000 restoration before they got into the interior or tuning work done on the car, which cost in excess of this figure. So altogether, about $15,000 to $20,000. The wheels chosen by the Fast and Furious team are Avis Racing AFAC 19-inch size. They used Toyo Proxys T1R tires, which were the official tires for the franchise at that point. They used 245/35 19s on the front and 275/30 in the rear, if I'm not mistaken. Cold air is filtered by a Trust Airings high flow filter that fed to the T61 turbo. It was internally wastegated. To connect it all, polished stainless steel TIG welded piping on the hood, and of course, high pressure silicone hoses. The turbo is mated to a bespoke cast iron exhaust manifold and then feed it to a Gretti's front mount intercooler and then into the intake. At the intake manifold, fuel is fed to the Renesas rotary combustion chambers. The Gretti system includes an e-manage setup and custom mapped, of course. There are also oil return ports from the turbo to the setup. They were using the Tanabe Super Medallion Hyper-Spec back exhaust, dual muffler. The pipe was 70 millimeters and the tips were 100 millimeters. It gave the car a sporty sound, but not without being obnoxious. You get some wastegate chatter, you can hear it from the front as the throttle is released for gear changes. Typical stuff. To put the power down squarely for drifting, there's a Cusco clutch rated to about 350 horsepower, as well as a Cusco two-way differential. Suspension was uprated with slightly firmer standard time progressive springs. They didn't need to do anything more with that car. Now, I've been looking for this car for a long time. I've heard rumors about the car was somewhere in Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or whatever, but apparently this car made its way to Pakistan somewhere around 2008. How did it get there? And it's taken me, I think, 3 or 4 years to find the truth. So here we are. This is where the story gets crazy. The car got passed around like a stripper at a bachelor party after it got to Pakistan. And I'm not joking. And each new owner changed the car. The tired rotary was ditched in favor of a 1JZ TE turbo, right? But that owner blew the engine twice. Next, it got an SR20 swap. Then it went back to a rotary. Then it went back to a 1JZ again, which is still in the car as of now in 2024. All of these changes, owners, all these engines happened for 9 years. 9 years. So if you're wondering why you don't see many surviving cars from Tokyo Drift, here's why. First off, Tokyo Drift was a box office failure. The movie cost $85 million to produce and made only $150 million. In Hollywood, a successful movie is one that makes 3 to 5 times of the production budget. That's not 3 times, not 5 times. Despite the fact that Rob Cohen, the director of the first movie, used to say, the cars are the stars. Well, maybe back then that was true, but now, you can't have a movie without actual stars. With the release of Tokyo Drift, only a few people in the audience knew anything about drifting culture. So the stars had to be the stars, and there were none of them. Paul Walker wasn't there. They got a new guy, and then you get Sung Kang. But there were no superstars in that movie that would draw people to the box office. The result was not good. It made only $150 million, as I said. And so then when a movie doesn't gross at least double its budget, it's considered a flop, a bomb, a failure, because it can't even break even. For that reason, I don't think anybody cared about many of the movie cars from Tokyo Drift. Shortly after Tokyo Drift, we got into 2008. We had a housing crash. An economic crash followed that. People who were suffering started to sell their things. They didn't need to own a movie car from a bad movie. So many collectors in the United States passed on the Tokyo Drift cars. Most of the Hollywood car museums, they didn't want these cars. I saw a few movie cars from Tokyo Drift started to change hands during the period from 2008 to 2010. Most of those Tokyo Drift movie cars went overseas. I've seen some in Norway, Germany, France, Ireland, the UK, Brazil, Pakistan, Sweden, and even Japan. A little later, a few of these cars landed back in the United States with car museums. But the journey of this Rx8 was wild. Like I said, this car changed hands many times over the next few years, and with each new owner, everything changed. But just recently, I learned that this car may be up for sale. A lot of us has been watching the auctions for movie cars for the last 6 or 7 years after Paul died. I'm sure that some of the people got the cars that they wanted. A lot of people didn't get the cars that they really wanted because they were too expensive. But here's why the cars from the first couple of movies, maybe even Tokyo Drift, more valuable or desired. I'm pretty sure the novelty of the first two movies and the fact that the hero cars were very intricate cars before even they got on the movie. Most of the main cars in the first two movies had a long list of performance modifications under the hood, suspension modifications, in many cases, elaborate audio-video systems, making these cars inherently more valuable than many of the cars in the following movies. Plus, and we grew up with these movies and we want the cars we saw on the movies back when we were in our 20s, right? For example, Tyrese's 1987 Chevy Caprice. I grew up in the 1970s and 80s, and I remember thinking most American cars were rubbish. When I got old enough to actually drive those cars, it didn't change my mind. The cars were lethargic, they were slow, the brakes sucked, the engines were weak sauce. Most of the cars leaked when it rained, and they cornered like a Greyhound bus. So I am not in that generation. I grew up in there, but I didn't want any of those cars. By the time Universal pushed on to Fast and Furious 4, the picture car team went back to the traditional cars. But what I'm getting at, it's not the same excitement around those cars as the first 2 or 3 movies. Most of the cars being used in more recent movies are built to do one thing, stunts. They're not to look pretty or anything, they're just stunt cars. And many of the rest of the cars in these movies are Dodge Chargers beefed up to do stunts, or they have some kind of old Mopars. Somebody is in love with Mopars over there, I don't know, but they're like totally sick of seeing those cars. And usually these cars get very little screen time, so if there's a cool car, you see it for like about 5 seconds and it gets destroyed. They don't give the audiences the chances to fall in love with the cars. And so you can't build excitement about that. These disposable cars from the later movies just don't fetch the big prices. Of course, there are a decent number of really creative and desirable vehicles from the later movies, including the flip car and some cool off-road cars, off-road trucks, dune buggies. However, I've been focusing on finding the missing cars from the first 3 movies. These are the cars that most collectors really want. A lot of people are scooping them up right now. If you're interested in this Tokyo Drift Rx8, let me know. I'll put you in touch with the owner. One more thing, there will be a very desirable car that will be coming up for auction pretty shortly. The car should fetch over $1 million. I'm not going to say another word about it, but maybe you have a guess. So I will be seeing that car in about 3 weeks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. It helps my algorithm. We'll see you next time. Thanks.